I started it.
Thank you. We will give people just a minute to give them a chance to go ahead and get into the room. We're going to give it another minute or two and see if other people are going to be joining us. And if not, then we will go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and wait until about 3 minutes after, and then we will go ahead and get started. Just another minute, and we'll see if anybody else is going to join us, and then we'll start talking about these rules. At 3 minutes after, we are going to start. And I'll tell you what, while we are waiting for that to happen, I activated the chat feature, not just the Q&A feature in this session. So do me a favor and go over to the chat, make sure that you can see it, and come in here and tell me what team are you with? Make sure you guys can get to the chat and also have a chance to be able to see it. All right, so I've got one person from the Techno Squad 5219, and then I've got a representative from 2974. Oh, and there's a couple of you. Well, good, good, good. So maybe I'm not doing this for just two people that's out there. Well, let's go ahead and get started. My name is, tell you what, moderator, do you want to do your stuff?
Oh, you want me to introduce you?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is Jan Sperlin, and she is head referee for the upcoming GRITS competition.
Super duper. Thank you so much. Um, so what I wanted to do is just to tell you a little bit about the referee squad that we have at Georgia First, and then specifically get down into we're going to do some game playing and um, go through and do some quizzes. And Monish, no, I'm fine as far as Greg is concerned. His wife's not doing well, so he's not going to be able to join me. So I'll be fine. Um, what I wanted to start off and tell you is that I've been doing this referee stuff for over 20 years. I've been doing it for a very, very, very long time. And one of the things that we try to do is we try to recruit people to be referees because we frequently find that if you've been a student or if you've been a mentor and are on a team and now you're looking for the next phase of what to do, this is one of the things that's really good to do. And what we will do is we will try and give those people a chance at grits because being a referee is not for everybody. It does require you to stand on your feet for multiple days on end. It does require you to know the rules very, very well and to be able to make some snap decisions. And that's not always something that is um, that a lot of people like to do. But we do try and do it as a group together. Now, just as an FYI, we kind of do things a little bit here different here in Georgia, in that we have got a fairly large group of people who have refereed for year after year after year. And as a consequence, we are able to put together a team of referees that don't include people who are currently on a team. And at this point in our life cycle, we don't have to do that. So while Big First will tell you that people who are on teams can be referees, they've got to be adults. We try to not do that and to not put anybody in that kind of an awkward situation. And we're pretty much able to do it. But the point being is that if you think that this is something that you're interested in, find me at some event. Tell me what you're going to be doing when you get out of high school or when you stop working with a team, and I will help you figure out how to get involved from the volunteer side. So that's my spiel as far as the referee crew and how to get involved with it. I can tell you that if you're going to be at GRITS, I think that I've got like 5 or 6 people who during last season was like, hey, I'd like to try this out. And so you're going to see their faces if you're going to be at Grits. So that's my 2 cents worth on that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I am going to share my screen. There we go. And what I'm going to do is to talk about and I'm going to move my shining face out there. And I am going to move the chat over to where I can see it. And what I thought would be fun to do is that to actually go through and play a game. So this is going to be how well do you know the rules? And if you have got your phone, what you can do is you can use that QR code. You scan the QR code, or you can go to www.menti.com and enter that 8-digit code that is over there. And this is all for fun. This is this is only for fun that's out there. And what we're going to do is, as the questions come up, you guys are going to each get a chance to give your answer to the question. And then we're going to talk about it a little bit. And this is where I will encourage you to use the chat, or you can, if you want to come off of mute, just raise your hand and my moderator will help you in doing that. All right, I think that we've got everybody out there, so let's just go ahead and go to the first one. Ooh, I think you guys are already filling this out. How many points is a minor foul worth? How many points is a minor foul worth? They did something different this year. It used to be that you had fouls and you had technical fouls, and they gave them all different names. And this year they started calling them minor fouls and major fouls to do that. So, okay, I see that I've got 6 out of 7 people. Seventh person want to take a swipe at this. All right. The actual answer is 2 points. The minor fouls are worth 2 points. So let's go look at the major fouls. How many points are the major fouls worth? And I got 4 people who are saying it's 6 points. What about the rest of you? 10 points. 4 points. The correct answer is 4 points that is out there. And we will go and we will talk about these fouls and the importance of their worth here in just a minute. The cooperation bonus. So how much is the cooperation bonus worth? And I can tell you that whenever I am looking at the game, the new game that comes up, this is one of the first things that I will go do is I will go look to see how many points things are worth and where can I actually go in and score them. In case of the cooperation bonus, it is actually worth a cooperation point. And where that comes into being important is when we look at how it ranks in their overall. So this is a true false. If you're scoring algae, and algae are the big balls that we have in the game, in autonomous, does it result in the same number of match points as scored during teleop? Is that a true? So do I get more points if I'm scoring it during autonomous? And in this case, the answer on this one is that's a true statement. You don't get any more points for scoring them if you are in the teleop period. What must a team do to earn 3 points during the autonomous relative to the starting line? Do they just need to leave it? Or must they not be on it at the end of autonomous? Or is it a matter that they just can't be on the opponent's side of the field? Correct answer on that one is they can't be on the starting line at the end of autonomous. This is something that you should look at when you get the rules for next year's game, because when they write the rules, you may think you know the rule. And then when you go back and you read it very slowly, you discovered, aha, they changed things. Because in previous years, it would be a matter that as long as you left the starting line, that you would get points. But this year, you couldn't be on top of it. So that if you were on the starting line, you left, and then you crossed back over it, you didn't get any points. Um, and so it's just something to be aware of in terms of how to do things. All right, so which statements do you agree about match scoring? Ranking points are more important than match points. A team that loses a match can still earn 3 ranking points. And a team that wins can earn 6 ranking points. Yeah, you guys are in pretty good shape there. And I think that I was thinking that that was going to come up, but at any rate, during autonomous, a robot runs into their opponent's cages. So they've hit the cage once. The cage swings out and it comes back and it hits the robot a second time. What is going to be the penalty for that? All right, none of you got it right. It was 2 major fouls because the penalty for that in autonomous is different than the penalty if that same thing happened during teleop. In the case of autonomous, it's just the 2 major fouls. Once because you hit the cage, and then when the cage swung out and it swung back and it hit you, that's the second major foul that is out there. Which statements do you agree with about whether a team will earn the full 12 points for being off the ground on a deep cage at the end of the game? So, if you're hanging on and you're on a deep cage, do you get park points? If are you going to get park points, or are you going to get the full points for touching the anchor? And yeah, you guys are right on that first one. You're touching that anchor, and the anchor, and that's another thing as far as robots is concerned, is making sure that you've got the terminology right. The anchor is that top bolt that's on top of the cage. If you're touching that, then you're not going to get the points. You're only going to get park points if you're touching a robot that is on your alliance and it is not hanging. So maybe it's parked or maybe it's there. You're only going to get those park points. And then park points if you are touching an opponent. Well, in that case, no, you will get full points, even though you may be touching your opponent who is out there. So this is what I was talking about. This is coming straight out of the book. And so you can see here in terms of the points for autonomous and the points for teleop. And then here in this red, you've got your ranking points. So you can see here that if you've won the match, then you've got 3 ranking points. But in addition to those 3 ranking points, you can get 3 additional ranking points. So for a total of 6, if you have all of your robots leaving and you've scored a coral, if you have got this coral ranking point and this barge ranking point. So it's easy to see that even if you lose the match, you still could get 3 ranking points. Now, where does all of this come into play? Well, this really comes into play when you're stopping to figure out, what do I want my robot to be able to do? And looking at where can you earn the most points and where is it going to be the most beneficial. Now, the second thing that we often look at too is understanding, so how do teams end up getting ranked? And this is where you start to see that the first thing that's going to happen is their ranking score. So if I go back over here, we're talking about the teams with the most ranking points. but after, but then when we get to the end of the, end of all of the qualification matches, it may be that there are a bunch of teams that have got the same number of ranking points. So what is that next breakdown? And that next breakdown is the average cooperation bonus point. So that's where that comes into play in terms of whether it is important to you. And then it's also interesting to see that your third break point is looking at your average alliance match points, not including any of the major or minor fouls. And then we've got the autonomous scoring, barge points, and then it goes random that's out there. So in our mind, it's super beneficial for you guys to know what the scoring is and where you can get your biggest bang for your buck. Now, to be honest with you, from a referee standpoint, I have no clue. At the end of a match, I generally can't tell you who's won or who's lost because the scores that are going on, the referees are not watching them. And if there is something that's not right when you get to the end of a match and you think that the scoring hasn't been captured, then we need you to come and tell us. And I'm probably going to have to get the FTAs and or the people who are doing the scorekeeping to be able to say yes or no. So any questions you've got about scoring and things like that, or anything that you want to ask about before we go on to the next ones? All right. So we will go ahead and go to this next one. During teleop, you have a robot that runs into their opponent's cages. It swings out and back in and it hits the robot. So it has hit it twice. This is the very same situation that we just talked about in autonomous, but in teleop, it's different. In teleop, you could get 2 major fouls and you get a ranking point. So I think that the philosophy was that you don't have as much control over it in autonomous for that to happen. And so they didn't want to give the ranking point, but in teleop, you've got more control that is over it. So bottom line is if you've got a driver that's still learning how to drive, maybe telling them to make sure that they stay away from their opponent's cages is a really good thing to do. And by the way, this whole running into the opponent's cages, this is one of the bigger fouls that we saw in the regular game. So this is a case that your robot is being disabled. Now, knowing what you know about what we just said about hitting your opponent's cages, use your move your little person and submit it for where is the safest place to put your robot so you won't incur any fouls. And you guys are on the Red Alliance. So I see I got okay, where would you put them in your starting position? Now, the starting position is all the robots on the Red Alliance are going to have to be on this line right here. So, and I'm willing to bet that most of you have probably already submitted and can't move them. Is that right? Somebody tell me something in the chat window. Okay. Let me see if I can move them. I don't know if I can move them. I don't think I can. Okay. What I was trying to get you to do was to say that it's safest to position them here versus in front of the blue cages. Because on the blue cage, if you positioned them here, if a blue robot hits that cage and that cage swings out and hits you, then that's going to be a foul on you. The other thing that happens is that when the blue robots are coming into their barge zone to do their parking and hanging at the end of the game, if you're sitting here super, super close, there is a real good chance that they are going to to run into you. And that means additional penalties and points that they can get and that they will get points for. So that is something to consider. So one of the things that we try to do, we don't always succeed, is sometimes you get your robot out onto the field and you're working with the FTAs and it's just not working, and everybody decides at the last minute that you're gonna be disabled for that particular match. What we try to do is to, if you are a red robot and you have originally been set up right here, we try and suggest that maybe you want to move it a little bit more toward us. The other thing to consider is that if at the same time, if you are a red robot and during the game you end up getting knocked out right here, maybe your opponents, or not your opponents, but your partners might come over and push you out of the way. All right, so Matthew, you said, would that prevent your teammates from entering the barge zone? Um, Hang on just a second. I am going to let you unmute yourself if you want and make sure I understand your question.
I was not a mentor or coach last year, so this is all new to me.
Okay.
But I remembered watching a couple of the matches for my team, and I thought one of the goals was to enter the barge zone at the end. Is that correct?
It is. Um, But this barge zone is fairly large in that 3 robots can easily get into it, so that if this robot was dead at the beginning, that's not going to prevent the other robots from getting in. The other thing that can happen is you can have one of your peers come in here and push you into the barge zone so that you get parking points. Does that
And
make sense?
it does, and you can't park your own robot.
Well, what happens is when you are initially starting, you have to start on this line. Part of you has to be on this line. Now, is your robot big enough to actually be both in the barge zone and across the line? Maybe not usually, but um but if you could do that, that is perfectly legal.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Good questions. All right. Can more than one human player be positioned behind the choral station? So what I am talking about, oops, fiddlesticks. It's not going to let me do that without doing that. Okay. The correct answer for this is yes. Any number of players can be in the choral station. So the choral station is where they're sliding the coral, the PVC pipe, down. And as long as the person is not a coach, because if they're a coach, they can't touch that coral. then you can have as many people as you need back in that area. Okay. Now here's another one of these drawing. So you are on the Red Alliance and you are a human player that has been assigned to be in the processor. Where do you stand? The correct answer for that is here, which is the red processor zone. And this is a little bit not intuitive, but what you will see is that the tape colored in this area is red versus the tape area over here is blue. So I've got my Red Alliance that's down here in my Alliance station, and their person is going to be over here. Now, this is also one of these things where this game took a little bit of, wait a minute, what are you doing? Because usually it's the Blue Alliance that's taking one of their algae and sending it into this processor. But that processor's a red processor. Well, the blue team gets credit for submitting the algae into the processor, but then the red team, when they take that algae and toss it up into the net on the barge zone, gets points for putting it up there. So that's the way that works, and that took a little bit of figuring out when we were first looking at that, because that was like, wait a minute, why is the red processor actually over on the blue side of the field, so to speak? During autonomous, can a human player try and score algae? Well, they can always try, I guess I should say, but it's a matter that yes, that they can actually do that. There is not a penalty against them scoring algae, but at the same time, they're also not going to get any additional points for scoring the algae that's there. There's not any reason not to. How many robots can play defense on the opponent's side of the field? 1, 2, or 3? This is one of those things. The answer in this year was 1. This is another one of those things where different games, as we go from game to game, that you should look out for. It's also one of those cases that if one of your alliance partners that you're playing with didn't play last year, maybe they're a new rookie team, or maybe they've got all new drivers that are on their team. This is one of the things that a lot of people don't understand. I shouldn't say that they don't understand. It's just it's you can only have one down there, and you need to make sure that everybody is in agreement on who's going to be playing defense. What does it mean when a referee waves a flag and then they cross their arms over their head? Correct answer is that it is a major foul. A lot of times, when you look at the people that you've got who are on your team that are in the alliance station, it's not a bad idea to ask somebody who is not the driver to be keeping their eyes open for referees. Because if you see the referees and you see them making lots of motions and it is near your robot, then that means that you probably have done something not good and that you're getting penalties for it. And hopefully that can be a little bit of a wake-up call, because we don't want you repeating the same thing again and again and again. Along those lines, one of the things that we try to do as referees is when you're leaving the field, referees will try and catch up with you to tell you what fouls you incurred. Now, big first, tells us that we don't have to do that. As referees, that's not our responsibility for which robots incurred which penalties. But we try. And because we've been referees for so long, we probably do it better than the average. And part of why we're doing that is not to shame you or cause you, any problem, but we kind of say, well, if you don't know that you did something wrong, how are you not going to do it next time? So if you've got a referee that's chasing after you, that's trying to tell you, hey, you did X, Y, or Z, it's for your benefit, so that when you come in next time to play on the next match. Do you agree or disagree with the statements about G427? And that is how we refer to the rules, as whatever number Big First has given them. And zone protection was one of the biggest fouls that we saw, because you will get a robot who isn't able to score. And so what they will do is they will go to their other end of the field and they will be playing defense. And more times than not, what will happen is, because it's kind of difficult to see. I mean, that's the other end of the field. You're looking through it in the plexiglass. Now, the referees are looking at it from the side. So we've got a different view on what's going on. And if one of your opponents is scoring coral onto the reef and you hit them, then that's going to be a major foul. Okay. So in the case where we've got a blue bot that's near the red barge zone and it gets hit by a blue bot that's in the blue zone, is that a red major foul? No, it's not. You got a red bot that hits an algae that's being held by a blue bot that's in a blue barge zone, then yeah, that is a red major foul that you've got, because your protected zones in this game are around the reef or in the barges. So staying away from a robot that's in its barge or on its reef is really, really helpful. The third one, you've got a red robot, they hit a blue robot, and the blue robot is in the coral station. So they're picking up coral from those corners. Is it a red major foul? No, it's not, because in this game, those areas are not protected. Now, that's something that's a little bit different than what we've seen in other games, but those areas are not protected. And then the last one, I've got a red robot hits a blue robot, and the blue robot is scoring coral on their reef. Yeah, that's a case where it's going to be a red major foul. Now, all of these things that we're going through, and these different scenarios, these are really good things to talk to your team about and try and figure out who knows what the rules are. Because one of the things that is very painful to us as referees is you've spent a lot of time building a robot that is capable of doing things. And it just pains us for you to get penalties because you didn't know the subtleties of the rules themselves. So we will strongly encourage that. True, false, you can steal an opponent's algae from the floor. Yeah, that one's true. And if you spent any time watching any of the competition that was happening at Worlds last year, you saw that happening a lot, because what was happening is those robots were so fast and so efficient on scoring the coral that oftentimes it was a matter of who could score more algae than the other team. And that might mean that you had to go and steal algae from the other team. What must a human player in the processor area do? HP is human player. Always try and score the algae in the net. stick the hands in the processor if the algae doesn't roll down fast enough. Not let more than 4 algae back up in the processor. Yeah, you guys are right in terms of the not letting the algae back up in the processor. But here is also a thought that you've got out there too. Okay. The person who is the human player has 2 choices on what to do with that algae. One of them is to toss it into the net. But when they toss it into the net, it's out of play. It can't be used for anything else. If you happen to have some of your partners who are able to pick up that algae and put it into the net, then you get a bunch more points than if it gets scored. So you can actually put that algae back on the field. And now we'll take a look here in just a minute at the field and see about that. But that's one of the things to think about that you might do. True, false. Something went wrong during the match, and you believe it was a field fault. Which of the statements do you agree with? Teams don't need to do anything. The FTAs and the refs will require a replay. Big First tells us that somebody has to complain. Somebody has to come and request that there is a replay. Because as soon as you start, if you think about it, as soon as we start doing replays, we're messing up the schedule. We are, you know, and potentially impacting it. So we want to replay as little as possible. Now, if we've killed the field and the match hasn't completed, then yeah, you know there's going to be a replay. But if it's questionable, I'm kind of sitting here looking and waiting for somebody to come to one of the question boxes. And it's the team that loses the match that's the one that really should come to the question box and ask for the replay. Generally, the team that won it isn't going to ask for a replay. But that is something that you need to be aware of, is that you've got to come and request that to happen. All right. So where should the team that is assigned to Red 1 set up in the Alliance station? And what you've got down here, and this is one of those things that helps us, is that there are three positions. And you can see we've got them down here set up for blue 1, blue 2, blue 3. So when the pairings come out, it shows you who's in blue 1, who's in blue 2, who's in blue 3. You want to make sure that you set up your controls if you're blue 1 here. Now, that might mean that you put your robot here, or you might put your robot here, or you might put your robot there. Just because you are in blue 1 doesn't mean that your robot's got to go directly in front of you, but you do need to put your controls in position number 1. Now, what's happening over here on red is it's just reverse. Where this is blue 1, red 1 is over here. The way to think about this is the scoring table, and my ones are opposite each other. So blue 1 is farthest away from the scoring table, but red 1 is the closest position to the scoring table. And then 2 is always in the middle, and then you've got 3. The other thing that I will tell you about this is that when we start going into playoffs, the Alliance captain can request who is going to be in each position. So one of the things that is good to do is to know where, if there is a position that you prefer, where you can do the most work in terms of the best work when you're doing that. All right, true, false. Referees can look at video to prove a point made by a team. Yeah, that is not true. Jan set this up wrong. That is a false statement. Big First will not let us look at video. We cannot do it. We can't um that that's that's one of their rules, and they won't let us do it. Now, to that degree, if you think that we have made a bad call, then my expectation is for you to come to the question box and tell me about it. And when I say a bad call, the bad call can be because we thought two robots hit and you thought that they came close, or that our interpretation of a rule is not accurate. Now, for grits, we've been doing these rules for a long time, so there's not a lot of wiggle room on interpretation. But when we go into 2026 and we have new sets of rules, know the rules. We're trying to interpret them, but we haven't had a lot of experience with it. So maybe our interpretation of the language is not what you have. And people who've worked with me know that if you make your case and it's logical, and I can see that's right, I'll change things. Big First doesn't like it when I do that, but I will do that if I think that we have been making an incorrect assessment. The second thing is that what we do in our world is each of the referees has got a quarter of the field that they are supposed to be monitoring. As the head referee, I'm looking across the whole field. Now, a lot of times on your quarter of the field, there may not be much that's happening. So maybe you're looking on the opposite side of the field. So it's not uncommon when there is a penalty that is incurred that there are two referees that have eyes on it. If you come to the question box and tell me that no, this didn't happen that way, they didn't hit, I'm going to go and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I'm going to ask you what quadrant of the field this happened in, because what I'm going to do is I want to go and grab the referee that was supposed to be watching that area. And the second thing is I'm going to ask you, when during the match did this happen? And then I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to that referee. I'm also going to go and see that if there is anything anybody else has seen it. Our rule of thumb is that if we have two referees that one saw it hit, one said no, it didn't hit, then it is a no call. So they don't have anything that they can do. And so, but it is dependent upon you guys coming back to us. And I've also been told that I've got 5 minutes left to go. Yay! That brings us to the end of what we had to do. So yes, let's go ahead. Is there any other questions that you guys want to ask me about the rules and things that are happening as far as the game goes? Any other scenarios you would like to ask me about? Because I will tell you that you know, a big piece of what we are trying to do as referees is to keep the game fair and to make sure that you know the rules as much as possible, so that people who are going to play at other regional events or that are going to Worlds, that you don't discover that when you get there that you didn't know that there was a rule. Is this quiz publicly available? No, it's really not, Zach. But this is what we do. The other thing that I can show you, will the referees be more strict on the rules at GRITS? No. No, they won't. And in fact, because we're going to have a bunch of referees that are being a referee for the first time, they may miss things. And that is the other thing that I tell people is that, yeah, we've got 5 sets of eyes on the field, but we may miss something. And if we miss it, even we can't call it, and we won't call it. So that is everything that I have got that I can share with you. The only other thing that I will share with you is that we put together a cheat sheet. So we go down for all of the rules, we break them down by the different areas, and we indicate whether it's major, minor, if it means it's going to be a disabled, if it has to do with yellows and reds. And this is a big thing that we are going and that we are studying as referees. And you'll see us refer to this. And I think it's a good thing for teams to be able to go and do. So, any other questions or anything else? Because we want to help you be successful and to know what you need to do. All right. Well, I think that ends our session, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. And maybe I'll see you guys at GRITS.